even though the societal messages are, no, men are, the toxic masculinity of, men are strong and they don't care and they just are, fuck machines and, that type of thing. Like, I realized that I'm super insecure and I didn't think I was. And
welcome to Normalizing Non-Monogamy, the podcast where we interview incredible people from across the entire spectrum of non-monogamy to hear their fascinating stories. We always strive to bring guests on the show who have a healthy and positive approach to non-monogamy.
However, everyone approaches this a little different, and at its core, our show is about hearing and learning from the different experiences and approaches people have. With that in mind, it's important to remember that the views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect those of our own.
It's also important to remember that we aren't doctors or therapists and that we produce this show for entertainment purposes only. Please consult a medical professional for anything regarding your health that you might learn about on this show.
One final thing that we need to let you know about is that this podcast will hopefully include some explicit language. So, if that kind of thing offends you, we suggest you just keep listening until it no longer does. However, if you're under the age of 18, you should probably stop listening or gather up your parents and listen as a family. Enjoy!
I'm waiting.
Go! You gotta go. You gotta do your thing.
I'm waiting for your Wednesday.
That's a Monday thing.
Welcome to episode 58, everyone. Oh, I lied. Welcome to episode...
Just do it. 59.
Welcome to episode 59, everyone. We're Finn and Emma.
Stop making it harder to edit. I'm not editing this. Your mistakes are forever written in stone.
I paused even so that you could get it.
Yeah, I'll just edit the pause out.
Thanks.
So welcome to episode 59. Wyatt and Josephine, awesome couple, reached out to us. They joined Cassidy using the links that we have. So they reached out to us, we reached out to them, and we've been chatting with them, and they came on. And yeah, awesome story. It's a really fascinating story.
Yeah.
And they're really great people. They've gone basically full circle from trying to start up religious organizations to being atheists living in France and opening their relationship.
Yeah.
And
I don't know if that's really full circle.
Well,
they didn't come back to where they started.
It's concentric circles. They don't overlap. It's not a Venn diagram.
No.
Well, they're a little bit of a Venn diagram.
Okay.
Anyway, we should stop talking about that.
Just a quick note on this episode. We do have a little bit of audio quality issues.
But it's mostly on our side, and we don't talk a lot, as you'll see. Mm-hmm. Sorry, Wyatt. But so it's not unlistenable.
No,
I will say that.
We're apologizing in advance.
Also, one other interesting thing about this one, this might be the first ever opening to a future episode that involves the children of the people we interviewed.
Yeah, that's true.
But that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, there's a potential future opportunity there.
Which is unique.
Yes.
Anyway, listen if you want to know what that means. And when you're done listening, go on to back and listen to episode 58, which is the one Emma thought this was.
Yes. And
it was on Monday.
And episode 53, both of which are episodes on new apps or the founders of apps that are out there that we want to promote. The first one is Polyfinda from a few days ago, and then the second one is #open.
Yep. So both those interviews are mostly the stories of the founders, so you can kind of get to know them and then get to know a little bit about the apps. They're both friends of the show, not paid sponsors of the show. So just go check them out and support them and support us by telling all your friends and family about us.
Yes.
That's how we grow, and that's how we make the show better for you.
As a quick reminder, you can find us on our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com.
And now let's go to the interview with Wyatt and Josephine.
Let's go. So, welcome, Wyatt and Josephine. We're excited to have you join the podcast for this episode. And we, connected with you both on Cassidy.
So thank you for joining using the links.
Wanted to get started and have you both introduce yourselves a little bit, maybe approximate ages or where you're located if you're comfortable sharing that, and just a background.
Because for the listeners, we really don't know a whole lot because, whatever's in the profile is pretty much what we know. So we're learning too.
Hey, my name is Josephine. I'm 44. Wyatt and I met when I was in high school. He was a freshman in college, and been together ever since.
And I'm Wyatt. I'm about to be 45, and we live in the southeastern United States, and have 2 kids, and have been married been together for around 27 years. Married for 25.
Wow, and yeah, that's super exciting.
Impressive.
So one thing you mentioned to us that we do know is your journey started very early, and then sort of you backed out of it, and then you are now trying to get back into it. So do you mind maybe taking us back to the early days of what that looked like way back at the beginning?
Sure, yeah. So if we rewind to the beginning, I was her high school sweetheart. I was actually in college, and I came back from college, and she was a friend of my friend's girlfriend, right? Yeah. And we met, went to the same school, but I didn't know her, and she knew me. And I remember when we met, she was sitting on the floor with her back into me, and I always tell her that that's what I remember I really liked. And so, I took it to introduce myself. She grew up Mormon. Josephine grew up Mormon, and I grew up just kind of typical American, going to church on Christmas and Easter, a little more than that. And so I introduced myself to her, and the rest is history.
Immediate sparks, right? There you go.
Yeah. And also part of our early journey was that we became born again Christian very early on, even though neither of us were raised that way. So part of that story is that we were sexually active in high school, and mostly vanilla, mostly monogamous, except for a few exploits that I had that involved a threesome and truth or dare with a friend of mine. But did you have any?
My experience was just with random people, and I mean nothing, just mostly vanilla. One time I didn't know his name, but other than that, nothing too exciting.
I don't have one of those, but
and this was you
like
guys
teenage years.
So this was before you two had met, right?
Exactly,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And then when we met,
Since we became Christians so soon after we met, Wyatt and I actually did not technically have intercourse before we were married.
We did everything up to penis and vagina.
Yes. And so that definitely was a challenge because we were together for 3 years before we were married. And I think that was what made our relationship have the basis of friendship that it does.
Yeah.
Because we couldn't do sex because, you're Christian. You can't have sex if you're Christian.
We even were talking recently that we remembered we did anal, and we didn't even remember it. We're like, how did it do that? Because now that we're actually exploring things, it's
yes.
How did we do that? We didn't have any lube. What did we do? That's been painful. No, I like it. So that was our, the vanilla part of our dating. We got married. It was the fairy tale type, fell in love, the Hollywood type, only have eyes for each other, etc., and which was really true because throughout our marriage, throughout our Christianity, we were not very open about, but we both knew that we were attracted to other people, but it's not allowed, right? You can't talk about it. That's any wandering, including masturbation, is completely prohibited. And so we knew about it, but we didn't talk openly about it, and it definitely wasn't a conversation. It's more of a, don't do it ever again.
Yeah. It was a policing of each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at what point did you allow yourselves to start exploring, whether it was with other people or just being more adventurous between the two of you?
Well, what happened was, and maybe you want to talk about this, but we moved to France and we lived there with our children. While there, it was really challenging. I'm very impulsive, and I'm like, oh yes, it's gonna be awesome. We're gonna go. I'm gonna drink wine and eat cheese and have bread.
She's very romantic, and so she was actually. I didn't want to. I was a homebody. I wanted to stay there, and she kept saying, "I'm gonna go to Europe. Oh, I'm going to Europe." And I worked for a French company, and so it's like, let's go to Europe. And so finally one day I called her and said, hey, I applied for a job going to France. And she said, oh yeah, I'm going to France. I said, no, I haven't gotten an interview yet.
I just applied for the job.
Yeah,
exactly.
But while in France, our Christianity was really challenged. We didn't find a church, and our daughter, unbeknownst to us, was really, really exploring her sexuality. And so
our son too, actually.
Yeah, it was, but we didn't know about
it. And they were both teenagers, but they were like 12 and 14 or 15. Yeah. No, I guess 11. Yeah.
So that was I don't know. That's kind of the start of the downfall for us, I'd say, out of Christianity or to our deconversion. And then we came back to the United States and we had to move down south where it's very different down here. The religion.
We're from the Northwest originally, so yeah. That's kind of.
So religion is very strong here.
Yeah, it's the Bible Belt, so you can probably maybe imagine if you've been to the Bible Belt.
But you moved down there, but then you were on your way to leaving Christianity at that point anyway, even though you're in an environment that it's a lot more, I guess, heavily around you.
We got down here, went to a church, and really our journey starts for that. Our religious journey starts way back before, and I have a degree and master's in biblical and theological studies, and so we wanted to plant churches and do all sorts of stuff. And so just a series of disappointments, and then coming back here and being in the South and seeing Christianity be kind of a very, at least the church we went to, it was like high school. It was like you had the cool kids and that was the pastor and everybody wanted to be friends with the cool kids. And it would give us a bad taste in our mouth. Plus, I came across a book called Radical. It was a book by David Platt. The subtitle is Taking Back Your Faith in the American Dream. And in that, he challenges you to read the Bible, through the Bible in a year and to pray every day and do certain things. And so I took up the challenge. And I'd already read the Bible several times, but read it. But in conjunction with that, we watched TED Talks. We watched documentaries and nature shows. And so both of us were kind of opening our minds. Plus, we've been to Europe and we come across different people's views. We met, people of different religions, which started to open our mind. People of different sexualities. We got back here. One of the stories too is when we left is within the Christian church, it was not acceptable at all to be homosexual. When we got back, we came to a church in the South, in the Bible Belt, that had multiple people that not were open about it, but were struggling with their homosexuality. And so we befriended one of them, and so part of that is just coming up with people of different sexualities, that type of thing. And so that was kind of all of that adventure, that exploration, that the learning we did also included our sexuality. Right? And so what we came across was some TED Talk again by Esther Perel. I don't know if you've heard of Esther Perel.
Yeah, very familiar.
Yeah. So she had two podcasts. The one was The Secret to Desire in a Long-Term Relationships. That was the one that really cued us into the difference between love and security and on the one hand, and desire and adventure on the other. And we were like, wow, that was great. So we looked for her online, found she had a book, ordered the book, and just kind of devoured all of that.
It was Mating in Captivity that we read, and because of our background, we weren't able to fantasize about others. We weren't able to say to each other, hey, that guy's good looking, or that girl's good looking. That was prohibited.
Yeah, you had just closed that all off in your mind.
And so when we read The Mating in Captivity, it was really revolutionary for us because it introduced the third person, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that it's a real person. It's someone that it's just the idea that that you can have that tension of security and adventure. And we never even considered that before. It was always just about the security part. And so that was definitely the first step toward the opening up, yeah, for sure, for us.
Sure.
And then
really the beginning of the conversation. We like to we talk about it as adventure, but we like the idea of conversation and the idea of eroticism, because for us we had a good marriage. We had sex, but we didn't talk about it. We didn't talk about improving it. We didn't talk about working on it. It was just you do it, and we were definitely sexual, but we weren't erotic. We weren't
and we didn't realize that you could get better at it.
Right. Like there's skills that you can work on. We worked on everything else in our lives, but our sexuality, no.
Yeah, that was an area that we both are.
You either know how to do it or you don't. It's just automatic, right? It's innate.
That's what we thought. And since then, we have really learned that it's more than just, penis and vagina. There's so much more encompassing it.
Yeah.
It's fantasy.
It's a fantasy. It's the idea of the third, the idea of maybe a real third.
Well, we read one of the books was that book from the Sex.
Sex at Dawn?
No, Sex That Works by Wendy Strager.
Okay.
Subtitle is Ultimate Guide on Awakening Your Erotic Life. And in that, she talks about, how she doesn't, her and her husband, the third for them is just she uses the fantasy as erotic fuel in her own relationship. It doesn't ever actually express itself in any physical relations with anyone else. It's just in her mind.
Right.
And so I think that's part of it, is that it's whatever works for you as an individual.
Right.
For us, we just decided that we would like to invite others, an actual literal third or fourth.
Well, and so it was quite a few years back now that you decommissioned your full on Christianity, right? It was
It's 2015, somewhere in that time frame.
So not a long time, but
okay.
I think for us, we are avid readers, and so as soon as we started the conversation, we both just started researching
researching
as much as we can.
Yeah, we're a little crazy and neurotic, maybe.
But that's how you learn. Yeah.
And
that's how I learn.
Make spreadsheets.
Yeah, making spreadsheets. That's all right. Nothing wrong with a little spreadsheet.
No.
So was there a point where one of you brought up to the other person the idea of actually bringing a real human into your relationship that wasn't the two of you?
Yeah. Who brought it first?
I think because he'd had a threesome in high school, that was something that he had thought about more often and wanted to try again. I was like, I don't know. But in the interest of trying to be adventurous, I talked to a close friend of mine. They were a couple, and I talked to her about possibly having sex in front of each other. And what would that be like? And we should try it. Yeah, we should try that. So her and I talked, but I hadn't talked to Wyatt yet. So then...
well, prior to that, though, you read The Ethical Slut.
Oh, yes, I had read The Ethical Slut, yeah.
Well, actually, I bought it, and much to her chagrin. And then she looked at us, what are you buying here? I said, well, it just looks interesting. I don't know. And then she read it. I haven't read it yet.
And so then what happened was her and I talked about that, and then we just kind of, just went away for a few months. But then we had the opportunity to, I had the opportunity to travel with them to a location that we needed to go to for an event, and Wyatt could not join me because he had to work, but he was going to join later. And so I was talking to my friend again about, the idea of having sex in front of the other person. I said, well, I've never kissed a girl before. Could I kiss you? And she said, okay, sure. And I said, but I have to be in charge. I have to be the one, if I don't like it, I'm going to push you away, and we have to make sure we brush our teeth, and we have to make sure
Sounds hot.
we get all these rules around it. I had all these rules around it because I was very nervous about it. Wyatt came, and we were with them in their camper, and I signaled to my friend, and I said, and she's like, okay.
I didn't know what was going on. I was like, what's happening?
I knew that we would be surprised. And so she and I started making out, and I got the surprise result that I wanted.
Because that was part of my, we talked about it, that was one of my fantasies, to have you make out with a girl.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Anyway.
And I enjoyed it too. I didn't push her away.
She kissed a girl and she liked it.
Yep. I liked that. And so then from there, with this same couple, we started exploring.
Yeah, it started with just went to a hotel and had sex in front of each other. At which point I had performance issues, and I didn't know what I thought it was because of my I don't know if you call it penis envy, penis issues, penis size issues. And the guy just that we're talking about swapping with happened to be in the 95th percentile, whereas I was in the 50th percentile. So I would like to normalize penis size issues because you don't hear that a lot. It's something that doesn't really get talked about, and that for me has been a huge part of the struggle for me.
And what have you done, I guess, to work on that for yourself?
Cognitive behavioral therapy, some what do you call it? Hypnotherapy. I've really just done informing myself, exposure therapy, finding out what the real statistics are behind it, knowing that actually all men have think that their penises are small because of the variation in our penis size when they're tested is so enormous, depending on temperature. And so that's a big one I've learned is that even people with the penis sizes in the 95th percentile when they're erect think their penises are small. So I've looked at actual statistics, what is the mean and what is the standard deviation from the mean, kind of knowing that. Also realizing that I'm not just a penis, I'm actually a human being, and Josephine has really helped me with that, and realizing that she doesn't she likes my penis, and she has no problems with it, and it's not small. But then still, the cultural messages on you hear, like, penis-sized jokes. Oh, he's got a small penis. You know, look at the sculpture of David and say, oh, you know, I'd kill myself if my penis is that small. Or you have, like, ooh, I like to be full. I like the question of fullness. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I guess, you know, I can't help with that, you know. You know, in the gym, I remember playing hockey that, you know, the only ones that strut around with their penises out were the guys that were well hung. In porn, all you see is you don't see the normal size, the mean size penises. You see 95th percentile penises.
Right.
And so realizing that the sampling is skewed. And so I'm super worried because we're really newbies and haven't actually done much. What we just shared with you is the max that we've done. We've done full swap with this couple several times, but we've never done anything else. So I'm terrified of going to a sex party or a house party and being like, oh yeah, everybody in this lifestyle is strutting around with giant 95th percentile cocks. You know?
So what I would offer out there is one way to normalize that, and it seems counterintuitive, especially based on what you just said, is that if you go to a nudist resort or like a Desire or any swinging resort or even any swinging events, you see the entire spectrum of sizes, and it actually really, really helps. And this is something we've heard and we've experienced too in terms of body image, just in general, is you see people from all shapes and sizes and all walks of life naked and having a good time, and they don't care. And it makes it really easy to be like,
Easier. I wouldn't say it's always really easy because people have hang-ups, but at the same time, it makes it easier when you see everyone else just
having a good time, and it doesn't matter if he's the biggest guy in the pool or the smallest guy in the pool. It's totally irrelevant. So I would encourage people to go to an event where there's tons of naked people and just have a look-see.
Just be around naked people, yeah. And the other part is that your point on that you're so much more than just your penis. Like, yes, we're all human beings and we're so much more than just our body parts. And there's many people that are attracted to just people's intellectual, stimulation and that type of side of people and just all kinds of different sexuality and body types and differences out there, that there's so much more to a human than
that's a great point. And it's awesome, and we appreciate you bringing it up because it is not something that people like to talk about. But yeah, it can be a challenge, and it's something that I've struggled with. It's So, I guess were you able to overcome it? It sounds like you did a full swap or attempted to. How did it go, and what did?
Well, I feel like I still need to do exposure therapy. I was able to. I know it's not a actual physical organic issue. I know it's in my brain. And what I realized actually listening to a podcast the other day on it, We Got a Thing, I guess is what it was. They talked about interviewed somebody that had that issue, and he said something that people started looking at him, and then because the other couple was done, his wife and the other guy were done, and then they were looking over, and saw them watching him, and then he couldn't perform. And the first time it happened, it was just Josephine and I having sex in front of them.
Yep.
And I've never had that issue before. And that's when I'm like, what the hell's going on? What is happening? Why won't it do what I want? And now I realize, looking back, that I think it had nothing really to do with my size issues. It's just my brain started going, what are they watching me for? Like, what, am I doing something wrong? Is my penis small? Do I look funny? Am I, that type of thing. Like, where it just starts going, and I go in this crazy, spiral of, like, wondering, and I can't make the brain stop. And
it's like that negative self-talk, right? That you get stuck in.
Exactly. And so, I mean, that's the big issue, and we've been to a new beach. We went to St. Martin, and for whatever reason, it's not a sexual. It wasn't a sex beach sex club, so it was like not sexual at all. It was like, oh, this is fun, like no problem. I had no problem with that.
I struggle with that. I do not feel comfortable being naked, and it's really hard for me to. I think personally, sometimes Wyatt likes to exhibit a lot more than
I thought I was an exhibitionist, but I don't know. I'm not sure.
When we were at the nudist beach, I sat with my swimsuit on for a long time, and then it was a long time. And then I just took off my top, and then I just took off the bottom, and then I ran straight for the water and got in. It didn't get out for a long time.
That was pretty funny because there was one couple that was strutting back and forth.
It was, but I was like, I admire them. Why can't I
do that?
Have the freedom to get up and walk around and show, everyone my body? And I was very envious of those people that were strutting around. But I've been working on it.
But you did it. You went there and you did get naked, and you went, even if you went into the water, that's okay. You did it.
We enjoyed it. We were both naked and strutting around. We spent a couple hours there.
Yeah.
It was fun. But it wasn't sexual. It wasn't really erotic at all. Mm-hmm. It was just like, oh, this is interesting.
The baby steps.
Yeah, but I was going to say, it's a good stepping stone. And if it was able to help the both of you normalize the being naked together, being naked in public, which is something that we definitely don't get a lot of practice at. I think it's a good step for people to take.
Well, it's a self-esteem building exercise too, a lot of times.
That's what it really all is that I realize that men have self-esteem issues and we have insecurities, even though the societal messages are, no, men are, the toxic masculinity of, men are strong and they don't care and they just are, fuck machines and, that type of thing. Like, I realized that I'm super insecure and I didn't think I was. And it was like caught me off guard. And I just have realized what's helped me is that if I really think of it, if Josephine is really going to run off on me with someone else because of a guy with a bigger penis, or he does this better, then our relationship really is based on nothing. If that's really, and so realizing that she loves me dearly and she is committed to me and she's not going to run. And if she does, then that's probably good. Actually, if she leaves for that reason, then I think it's a good thing.
She doesn't seem like she's going anywhere, so that's
no. So with this couple that we started, swapping with, at first it was, just having sex in front of each other. Then what happened was there was a connection between me and the guy of the couple. There wasn't as strong as connection between the Wyatt and the girl, and so it became kind of lopsided, kind of one-sided, and we kept trying to do things and experimenting with them. For me, I needed to see Wyatt with another woman. I needed to visualize Wyatt touching another woman's body. I needed to see it in my mind so that I could that in my mind, if I could take that first step, then I was going to be okay.
Well, we started actually a different time. We were at our house and we tried kissing crossfire. And that was before the camping trip, right? No? Okay. Oh, you're right. Yeah, the camping trip. Yeah, you're right. The camping trip was consisted in you kissing her, then you using your vibrator, in front of them, which everybody thought was cool, and then us doing oral and stuff like that together in front of each other. Okay.
And so then I saw him touch her, and I was like, oh my gosh. And the other guy, he was holding me, and he like just by my arms and saying, okay, either you know, watch it or call it. You have to do this. This is like, you know, you got to take this step. And I was like, okay, kiss her. Let me see this, you know, bring it on. And so,
exposure there.
yes. And so we kissed her, and I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's not bad. That's okay. That works. And so from there, it became just more of like, I need to watch him do this. I need to see him do that. Because for myself, I needed to, there are some people that can do the don't kiss or kiss but don't tell idea. And I needed to see it for myself. I needed to watch him do that so that I just needed to visualize it. I needed to be able to take it in and say, okay, yeah, that's what's happening. Because our cultural, you know, background and the Christianity just really held all of those ideas. The idea of, you know, him touching someone else was just anathema. Really, it wasn't allowed, and so it was we really had to deprogram. Basically, that's what I guess. So that was part of the deprogramming for me.
I was curious, when you were fantasizing about it, was it something that turned you on to think about?
Well, I struggled with fantasizing because I very much like to. I'm very conscientious, and so I wouldn't do anything that I wouldn't want Wyatt to do to me. So I don't want him fantasizing when we were Christians, so I'm not going to. So I really learned, I just shut that down. When I was in high school, I fantasized, I masturbated, I did all kinds of things. And then when I became a Christian, you just had to shut that off. You couldn't do that anymore. And so we lived for so long shutting that off. It's been hard for me to reactivate that.
Right.
That's the right word. To start.
To allow yourself to think that way again, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so it's just been a gradual deprogramming for us for the last, because we started this journey about 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 or 3 years ago. And so it's just been a gradual deprogramming. And that's why I think we read so much, so that we can start understanding the bigger issues around it. And I think the biggest thing that we've learned is communication. Like, because we wouldn't talk about this stuff before. We would never talk about sex. We would never talk about, you know, do you find someone else attractive?
What do you like about this?
Yeah.
Why do you like it? Show me how to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so,
you're saying?
Yeah, well, I was curious. I've got a lot of questions now, but when you actually saw it happening, even though you had a hard time fantasizing about it or thinking about it, did it turn you on in the moment, or was it a shock? And I guess that's a question for both of you in terms of seeing it for real for the first time.
Well, it didn't turn me on because I was in such self-preservation mode of like, okay, I'm going to just grin and bear it, and I got to get through this. And so it didn't turn me on at first. But I will say that watching later on, we did do more. So the girl went down on him, and that really turned me on. I liked that. Yeah, I enjoyed that. And what happened is she was doing it, and I was talking to him. I was like, "Do you like when she does that? Is that?
Yeah.
Do you like how she does that?"
I'm trying to concentrate on the pleasure here.
And so it was, and she was really super sweet about it. And she's like, you know, I'm gonna suck him off, and I'm gonna do it like this.
Like you said, is it different?
Yeah.
Yes, it's different. I don't know yet.
Give me some time. Let me experience this.
So that was actually a lot of fun to do that, to watch that. So it did eventually get to that point, but it was a gradual. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, that's so hot. I just really, want to see that all the time. It wasn't like that for me at first.
So for me, it's I thought I would love it, right? And so because of my realizing I'm insecure, and if I'm not involved, like when I watched her, I heard a podcast that you guys had the other day with Abby and Justin, and I totally related to it because I felt like when I didn't really have a spark with this woman, so I was trying to do stuff, but then having performance issues. Then I look over at my wife, she's getting absolutely pounded by this guy, and she looks like she's super enjoying it. And so I'm looking at it thinking, oh, she enjoys it more than she enjoys it with me. Look at the faces she made. So I'm overanalyzing it, and I'm getting traumatized, and I'm thinking, this is not what I thought it would be. and so I'm thinking, like, man, this is terrible. But then when we just did three of us, because we had a couple occasions where we just had him over, because both of us had more of a connection with him. And actually, eventually, we both asked him to be our third. And this was after some problems and some issues with the wife. And so we said, hey, because he was a super good friend of mine and that type of thing. And in those type of situations where she had two cocks and she was, she said, I absolutely love this. This is so much fun. This feels so good. I love this. And just to watch her, like, her absolute thrill and their excitement, it was just amazing to me. Like, I love that. So there are parts of it that, scenes that I have in my head that I replay that are absolutely, I would love to continue this journey and exploration, and then other ones where I'm terrified. So but I need to get over it, and I'm still working on it, and I think we're getting closer to. We're actually have not relaunched it again since this couple. We had a falling out, and now they've sort of ghosted us. Because they had some problems. And
this was the one couple, right? Your friend. This was your original friend, Josephine.
So our issue is we're super afraid of STIs, and so this other couple, we knew they weren't swingers, and we wouldn't call ourselves swingers, and we knew, said, well, let's be monogamous with them, right? Because like then we know we're safe, and so we can be fluid bonded or whatever you want to call it, and so that was comfortable for us, but. Since they left, and since I've been looking for a job and going to move out of the area, we really haven't we joined Cassidy, we discovered your podcast, and so we've been continuing kind of investigating and reading. Really haven't reached out to anybody yet. We've started to try, but it hasn't really worked well in Southeast here.
Yeah, and so you never really got to a point where something happened that stopped it for you between the two of you. It was a situational thing. It wasn't like this happened and we said, well, we got to pull back. It was they had their issues and they had to pull back. Okay.
Yeah, and it was something that when we talked with this couple, we made guidelines that everyone was going to be comfortable with, and as it turns out, the wife wasn't as honest with us as she should have been.
Because we talk all the time. That's one of the things we learned on all the podcasts is talk. And I think pretty good.
I think that Wyatt and I did a lot of research, and they had not done as much research as we had. And so when it all started happening, and it all happened like within a year, the whole entire relationship was because they didn't live in the area, so we couldn't see each other all the time. But over that 1 year,
we spent a lot of time.
We did spend a lot of time together.
At least once a month.
But it just we started out slow, like we said, and we ended up full swapping. But we would always the next day, because they would come to our house, and the next day when we had breakfast together, we would process. Okay, so how was this for you? And
was this okay? Was this
Yeah, we thought we were connecting, doing the touch points, touch bases, the reconnecting as a friendship, because we were good friends. So not just as as people who have sex with each other, but also as just friends. Hey, are you okay? Are you okay? And making sure everyone was fine. And she never said anything different until one time she just lost it.
Well, we were always amazed. Man, you have such conversion.
Yeah.
Which we didn't know that term before we started listening to the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess for the listeners, if they don't know the word conversion, I guess it's an invented word from polyamory, polyamorous environment that it's like you like to watch your partner have pleasure. Right?
You take pleasure from your partner?
Yeah. That's a fair.
Take pleasure from watching someone that you care about have pleasure.
Yeah. And so she ultimately was the pulled the ripcord on it, right? And that okay.
She recommitted her life to Jesus and went to her family and put an ultimatum on her husband. So it was kind of like they're working and they're getting therapy and stuff like that. So it's good. It's going to be good. I think for everybody, it was good for us. It was a good learning experience. And thankfully, we didn't go, okay, we're never doing that again, which we had the tendency to do. Be like, okay, that was a mistake.
Tried it once, that's it, we're done.
Right. So since this has ended, you've been sort of exploring like what the next steps are you want to take. I guess we're curious, what are those steps? Where do you think you want to take it, and what are the things that you would like to keep exploring?
We definitely want to continue exploring same room play. That was something that we talked about. We're all in. I mean, like, we definitely want to continue.
Yeah, I mean, it's
doing this
for us. We're central. Our relationship. We're doing it as an enhancement to each other. So any of our we came across a podcast that talked about agreements instead of rules or boundaries, because rules and boundaries sound like that's what parents do, and that for us has been really meaningful because it was Ari Kardas, and she was on Sex Out Loud.
Okay.
It's called Strengthening Communication, Reducing Conflict, and Increasing Intimacy to Design Your Ideal Relationship. So there she introduced the idea of naming your relationship, and so we named ours because it's something you take care of. It's something that needs care and feeding. But the other thing she talked about was the idea of agreements, and so for us that was really meaningful to kind of have guidance of what it looks like. And for us, it's I've heard emotionally monogamous, but sexually non-monogamous. And so for us, all of our kind of agreements surround that. Right? I mean, like, we want to limit cuddling or any sort of texting or interaction that are separate from each other. We want to do everything together. So for us, it's a journey that we're doing as a unit, and not maybe more might be polyamorous. That doesn't resonate with us at this point. So for our going forward, it's really, we're like Josephine said, we're all in, and we're educating ourselves, and we just want to. A big thing too is consent. That was one thing I wanted to talk about. Is consent and transparency. We had I can't remember what podcast we listened to it on, but somebody talking about the difference between honesty and transparency, and she used a French fry example. So, like, if I'm sitting with somebody and we're getting French fries, and maybe it's like Josephine ordered French fries, and she goes out to the bathroom, and so the three different scenarios are: she goes out to the bathroom, comes back, and then looks at her French fries and goes, "Oh, there's some French fries missing. Did you eat the French fries?" Yeah, I ate the French fries, but I didn't disclose that automatically. She'd ask me. That's honesty. And then transparency, there are two different types of transparency where she comes back and then I'm not going to volunteer that I ate her French fries. But, she had to wait till she came back. The third which is also transparency, I tell her before she leaves, I'm probably going to eat your fries, just so you know. And so I'm kind of have the tendency to omit, and so Josephine has to ask things the right way. I won't lie in general, but if she feels like she has to ask me. And so working on it for us, one of the big things is just being upfront, saying things in advance, being transparent. Like the third example with the fries, where, you know what, I'm probably going to look at that woman, or I'm probably going to, that type of thing. And I think that's been helpful. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a really good tip, I think, to take that exercise and think through it. And because I'm sure you don't mean to not tell her things, or you don't mean to just not be as transparent as maybe you would like to be, but we're all human, and you need to all grow and work on things. And for your relationship, I think that's a awesome strategy for someone to at least think through.
I don't think about it. So it is. I think, I'll tell her if she asks, but I don't. Right. I'm afraid of, the reaction or whatever. So,
I was curious, are there things that you found that you liked that surprised you, or things that you didn't think, or things that you thought you would like that you didn't, or something that happened that that surprised either of you, or things that you're hoping to experience that you haven't had the chance to yet?
That's a good question. I was definitely surprised by having two cocks in my hand and then being able to, just handle that.
She handled it pretty well.
It was amazing.
She handles both of them really well.
I was really surprised by that. I really loved the just the energy of being with other people.
Like flirtation. And,
I like the flirtation, the banter, and just the sex is great.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing is we've coming out of all this is we've learned that actually sex is there to enjoy. And we tried some things where we came across one of those, I don't know where we came across that, the sex lists. And one of the things was to have sex every day for 30 days. And we did that as an exercise, and that was just phenomenal. Like, that was amazing. We'd never done that, And now we're doing it again this month. So,
in honor of Valentine's Day and his birthday.
That's right, my birthday as well. And we put a little box. We have this little nice, pretty box that has all of the little things on the list to try. We haven't really started this yet, but our idea is to pick one out and do it. And so it's things that we've agreed to do together that we went through and made separate lists where we said, this is what I'd like to do, or this is what I'd be willing to do, yes, no, maybe. And then each did that, and then cut the ones off we agreed on and put them in the box. So that's something we're going to do.
I think that we definitely want to. I would love to see Wyatt with a woman that he connects with, that he had a spark with, and I desire to see that a lot. To see him enjoy himself. Now, I don't know that my level of compersion is super high, but I definitely want to try that, because even though we did have sex with our friend, it wasn't like he didn't. There was that.
I couldn't get it up. How about that?
Oh. He did sometimes.
It was spotty. Like internet connections.
Yes. I would love to see him be able to be with a woman that was just really into him.
Me too. We would love to find friends with benefits. Part of it, for us, it's not just the sex. For us, it's the witty banter, it's the clever interaction, it's the flirting, it's the relationships, it's having intellectual, meaningful conversations, and not just coming and having anonymous sex. That's not what it is.
And I have to say, for the listeners, that you guys are very, very clever, and it's been very fun flirting with you prior to this to this interview. That's been a lot of fun.
We've enjoyed that. So
don't be giving away our secrets.
Oh.
How you doing?
No, we're trying to have fun.
All right, so one of our another of our fantasies is to do an après ski weekend. We want to try to move to a place that has ski resorts near there and do that. That sounds sexy and fun.
What does that mean?
Can you explain what that is?
Oh yeah, we can do that. You want to try to explain?
What it is you spent the day skiing in a very cute outfit, and underneath the outfit you just have on like your bra and panties.
No, not me, but Josephine.
And then you get to your hotel afterwards, and you're just having drinks in your little ski outfit that's very cute. And
you go to the lodge, and everybody has drinks. You go to the hot tub afterwards. You got your wine and your drinks, and it's just a sexy environment.
Yep.
An 80s movie that has a lot of that in there is called Hot Dog, and I used to watch that growing up. It was awesome. Very sexual movie. It's one of those 80s movies where you watch to see movies.
So all in all, just a very sexual environment and just free and fun, right?
But we like the sophisticated version more than the party version, so that's kind of where we line up. So European après ski.
Yeah, that sounds pretty fantastic to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really does. Where we'd like to end up is we love hospitality. We're passionate to host and entertain. We would love to join that with sex, and one day our goal is to be known for having house parties in a very sexy environment and classy, and kind of being in France, living in Europe, we've kind of been able to discover very historic and sexy environments, castles and things like that. And then also watching the Eyes Wide Shut scene. That's really been something for me. It's I'd love to have a sex party in that venue. But the mask part, that we realized that thinking through logistically, it wouldn't work. Because, if you had a mask on your full face, you couldn't do anything.
Right.
Sex. Very limiting.
Well, I was curious back on the list of things that you keep next to the bed to pull out, and it sounds like you each made a list. I was curious, was there something from either list that you were surprised to see from the other, and something that got vetoed from the other person?
No, I don't think. Really, what it comes down to, honestly, is that we've been, I don't want to say oppressed, but we really did in Christianity and never explored. And so I have to say that what this has done, what starting the conversation has done for us, has opened up the idea that we can do all of these things. And
the taboos are gone.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, why can't we do this? What's wrong?
And so we've just done things that we've never done, and we've tried to perfect. Not that you ever perfect anything, but we've just really worked on our skills as lovers and tried to really understand. For myself, like I said, in high school, I did a lot of self-exploration, but for myself, just knowing what I want and what I desire, or what feels good to my body, and then finding out, for himself what feels good for his body,
and then just asking each other. Mm-hmm. One thing, when you masturbated in front of me, that was the super hottest thing I've ever seen. And we didn't do that. Now we do that in front of each other, and it's super fun.
Yeah.
And exciting and thrilling, and I love it. So, there was no surprises. But this month we're going to work on hand jobs.
So really, it's not that we were surprised by anything, but we're just opening up ourselves to more and more opportunities and learning experiences and trying new things for ourselves.
That's why I like the term conversation, because it's like it's a discussion, it's a conversation, it's ongoing.
Yeah.
Well, and you both. So I know you've mentioned that your conversational skills have blossomed, I guess, in the last few years as you've been exploring this. Have there been other differences you've noticed in your relationship? It sounds like more sex too, but
lots more sex.
And I guess along those lines, has there been things that, like, have your kids picked up on differences in you two as well? Like, have you changed as a family?
So what happened is, like I said, our children became quite active in their own sexuality. When we lived in France, when we came home, our daughter
went into overdrive.
When we came home, it did go into overdrive, and so it really opened the door for their sexuality. Opened the door for us to talk to them about.
Well, because ours was before we would teach our daughter that you save your one kiss, and she didn't.
Virginity.
We know now that she didn't know what the heck we were talking about. We were saying save your kiss for the one, right? And she thought it was literally like a kiss. She didn't know that it meant sex.
Because we weren't explicit, and that's
right.
It's actually,
we did them a disservice. But
yeah, we did.
She was very sexual. Anyway,
so basically, what it's done is when we started, because they were coming to our home, the family or the couple that we talked about previously, they were coming to our house a lot, and so we told our daughter and our son, hey, we just want you to know we're swinging with these people.
Yeah,
so you know.
We have an open relationship, and it was logistical. It was purely logistical. Our kids, we figured they could handle it. They were, 17 and
because
20
we've been talking about sex with them. France actually really did help us open that door.
Right. Yeah. I mean, in France, the sexuality is just a normal thing. They talk about it freely from when they're very young. And they're very responsible. Like kids over there, they always use condoms. It's not like here where it's like, oh no, condoms are stupid. I have a good, awesome pull-out method, stupid stuff like that. And there, it's just like part of the culture. Mm-hmm. So they came back with that. We didn't actually experience that. But they got that at school, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it was when we told them, they were like, oh, well, we kind of knew.
We figured.
Because we were spending so much time with this couple. Then it didn't really change anything. I think that it just, for our son, who's the younger one, our son is the younger one, our daughter's the older one, he is now in a relationship with his girlfriend, and that's an open relationship. So I think that it's planted some seeds for.
It's weirdness out there, and she's kind of traditional, and I said, well, we're officially in an open relationship. It's like, oh, okay.
Yes. Our daughter, she recently got married also, and so she and her husband moved to Texas, and they are, he's more traditional, so she's having to kind of.
She actually sends me links and stuff. She sent me a link on non-monogamous marriage, and she finds it intriguing.
Yeah, so they're working through their own, what that's going to look like for them. Yeah. And so it's a fun conversation to have with your children as they get older. I mean, I know that sounds weird, but it's
fun to have them actually ask you about it. They know that, mom and dad are open, right? And they're going to tell me the truth, and they're not going to sugarcoat it. And so we often front on both. And you know what? You don't have to do the rules.
Societal rules that there are.
It sounds that's a fascinating shift. I think, like, it sounds like when they were younger and you were all, very religious and just more reserved. It sounds like that was very structured, and that was the one way. And then as they've gotten through their teenage years, and you have both opened your minds a little bit more and learned more, it sounds like they pushed you a little bit in that too, but also they've learned along with you, and now you have that open line of communication, which I don't know, I think that's pretty awesome to have as a family unit, to be able to just be honest with people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's been fun, and we're enjoying it.
Yeah, we are enjoying
the ride.
Yep. Sure.
Very cool. Well, and it opens us up for 2 more interviews.
That's true. Could have been fun.
Way to look at it just from a podcast standpoint there.
No, that is really fascinating, and I think it's awesome that you're able to have that, and that they're able to have that communication with you. I think that would have been awesome to have when we were kids, but or now. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, we covered a lot of ground. One thing I wanted to bring up, because you mentioned it, was you guys are terrified of the STIs and sexual health safety. What steps are you taking or have you taken to try and help alleviate those fears?
So, the first time that I actually did a full swap with the other guy, I got a UTI infection because it was, different fauna and flora, and so I was like, oh no, I have a disease, that's it, I'm screwed, I'm going to go to the doctor, and it's just going to be horrible.
And I'm thinking, why do you have flowers in there?
So then I go to the doctor, and of course it's, how many sexual partners have you had? So I have to tell this strange guy, I just had this other guy that I haven't had before because I've been with just my husband for the last 20 years, and then we decided to open our relationship. And so you find yourself, because you're awkward and uncomfortable, like saying things that you probably shouldn't and offering too much information to the doctor. And so he's like, okay, well, let's test you for STIs. I'm like, okay, let's do that. Because even though he's never been, the couple that we were with, he had never been with another woman. And so they were only with each other. And so I was like, I do not have an STI, but you never know. Like, maybe
he cheats on her.
Maybe she cheats on him. I'm not sure.
Maybe they don't know.
So I got the testing done, and I was fine. Nothing was wrong.
She was cleared for sex. It was great.
Yes, I was.
It was just a UTI, which can be really uncomfortable, but
yeah. But it was definitely. It was painless. It was nothing, just getting your blood drawn and doing that. So that is definitely something that we will
we'll do regularly. I've never done it before, but one of the things that's helping us deal with that fear is just talking to people, right? The normalizing part of being like, we went to a sex club when we were visiting our daughter in Texas, and we asked, that was the question we asked this guy. We said, but how does that work? And the answer was sort of laissez-faire, but it's sort of like, oh no, it's not that big a deal, and you just do use protection when you have penis and vagina, but oral you don't really need it. Anyway, we're planning on being very vigilant about using barriers for penis and vagina, but probably for oral, we're going to play it by ear that part. Kind of, I guess. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And just have the elevator speech. We're going to ask that, and maybe we'll have our little card with our test results in our phone. Be like, here it is.
I think that's a great strategy, and
I wish more people did that, actually. So we're all for promoting safety and just having that conversation, right? Just so much better prepared mentally, and when you're able to have that conversation, and if somebody has something to disclose, and then you can have a conversation about that. And sure, maybe it's something that has been treated, and they're not they're on certain medication or something, and then you can have that discussion, and everyone can talk about it, and it's just so much more comforting, I guess, to have that out there in the open.
And hearing and understanding that it's like having a cold, growing up in the 80s, it's kind of like, with the AIDS, you just think that it was diseases, right? And it meant it was like, oh my word, you have this fear-based thing that's like, oh, you've got, you need to be quarantined because you have leprosy. And that's, realize that it's actually, we get sick. Just like we get sick, and so that's been helpful, I think, me, realizing that.
And listening to your guys' podcast has really helped a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you guys talk about that
almost every episode.
Yeah, every episode, and it's helped take the fear out of it a little bit for us, or not to minimize it. I don't want to say minimizes it, minimizes it, but more like it's not as fearful as it was.
Yeah.
Sure.
Awesome. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure people are more comfortable in just having that conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for that little plug. And I think also thank you for everything you shared. And is there anything that we didn't touch on that you want to? I know you have been flipping through your sheets of notes.
Yeah,
that the listeners can't see.
Note to other listeners: if you're ever a guest, this couple is very prepared. They have a lot of notes.
So, is there anything on your sheets of notes that we didn't ask about that you want to get out there?
I'm sure there are. I would say that some of the resources, maybe. I don't think we maybe mentioned most of it. Did we mention the Rewriting the Rules? I don't think so. An Integrative Guide to Love, Sex, and Relationship by Meg John Barker.
No, I don't think you did.
That's been phenomenal for us, especially with our kids. And she calls it an anti-self-help book because she says that most self-help books, the problem is lodged within the individual. And her concept is, no, the problem is not with you. The problem is with societal messages. And so she goes through different rules that society has and says, okay, not what's wrong with it, but to ask you, what does it mean? Why is it there? And what do you want? You get to rewrite the rules. And so it's more of questioning societal rules. And that's kind of what this has all done for us, is realize that all these taboos, these rules and things that exist, even the penis size issue, is all society, trying to, like it has a personality, trying to control and set up boundaries and barriers to protect itself, I guess. What else would you say? Esther Perel, we love her. She has a podcast where she gives counseling therapy to people, and just listening to those has been amazing for us. It's just tips, tricks. Therapy, we can't. One of the things we can't speak enough, I guess what I'll say is that we have just recently been reading into cognitive distortions, because what this journey has done for us is there's a lot of conflict. We won't lie, because we're having to have tough conversations and kind of test our insecurities and that type of thing. And so what we've realized is that we're not as good as communicators as we thought we were. And so we're making another list of all of the cognitive distortions that exist, like black and white thinking, generalizing, blaming, catastrophizing, minimizing, those type of things. Things that we do, and crazy thoughts that we have in our heads, and putting that and printing it out. So whenever we do have a conflict, we've given each other permission to go to it and say, why are we having a conflict? What is the cognitive distortion that one of us did? We just did it yesterday. And it was painful, but it worked.
That's excellent advice.
Yeah, no, and what a way to build your relationship too, and to build yourselves as individuals as well, and be able to reflect and think about more than just how you're feeling in that exact moment, like more why am I feeling the way I am?
Sure.
Yeah, that's the big thing is, just being present, being self-aware, and we've always prided ourselves, especially Josephine, on saying, what's the term you always say, the expression about, you want to show me my reality. She wants to know reality. And I think that's what we all want to know, because in our brains, is this other reality that maybe doesn't reflect actual reality, maybe an illusion. And that's part of this whole therapy, is realizing that when we're doing this, I'm having these crazy nuts thoughts that if I actually, in my rational moments, I look back and think, that was ridiculous that I would even think that. Why would I ever think that? Like, you know, if our relationship is really only based on my penis size, you know, like, what does that say about Josephine? You know, how shallow is she? You know, like, that's kind of just reasoning it through. That's been helpful.
Yeah. No, I think we want to say thank you for everything, and that we hope as the journey continues, maybe we get a part 2.
You say that for everyone.
I will.
For part 2 to come. We're so excited.
We're excited to hear about it.
We'll be writing our rules and writing our story, and it's fun. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be amazing. So until then, we'll let you go enjoy the rest of your evening. You've got sex to have today and tomorrow.
Yep.
So
You don't know. They could have already done it.
No, I can tell.
But we will.
Well, we will let you get to that, and until next time, thank you. And
thank you for being open and honest with us.
We
and
do
for the
appreciate
listeners.
Thank you so much for having us. It's been a real pleasure.
Well, absolutely, anytime. We will talk soon.
Why are you staring at me?
I'm waiting for you to do the thing.
Welcome back. That
thing.
We're back.
We're back. Thanks, Wyatt and Josephine, for sharing your story. Awesome story. And fascinating story. So we look forward to seeing what the future brings.
We had a wonderful time chatting with them. Next Wednesday, we have an interview with other podcasters, Steak and Tequila.
Actually, tequila and steak is the proper order.
Okay.
Because
their podcast name is Steak and Tequila.
I understand, but we always say the woman's name first.
I know,
so it's Tequila and Steak, which is very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So.
It's very uncomfortable.
Well, it just doesn't flow.
Because that's not the name of their podcast?
You can't have tequila before you eat your steak.
Sure you can.
I don't think you can.
Okay.
We'll have to ask them. Anyway,
we got really diverted here.
We're really excited to bring you that. That was a super fun conversation. Super awesome people. And looking forward to it.
Yeah. I think that's it. We don't have anything major. You can find us on our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com.
And while you're there, click on some of the links to get yourself $10 off on your STD check.
Yes.
STDcheck.com. They are a supporter of the show, and using the links does support us. It also supports you knowing your status.
Yes.
So go do that, and we will see everybody in 1 week.
Bye, everyone.